We welcome you here to the Arabian Sports Talk here on 91.7 WEEM. But if it's your first time tuning in, alongside Ryan Davis, Lucas Cart, and Aiden Wilson, I'm Dawson Perrell. For today's episode, we will be discussing our sports hot takes, which, if you don't know what those are, pretty much bottom line, to sum it up in short as possible, it's unpopular opinions when it comes to sports. So for in the guidelines, it can be from any era, it can be from the past, the present, or you could look onto the future. It could be any sport. We'll mainly stick to basketball and football. I think we'll touch maybe a bit on baseball, but really only professional and college. No out of the ordinary stuff from that, but I'll get us started here. First off, of course, I'm a Saints fan. We've discussed this several times. So mine is relating these Saints, more specifically running back Alvin Kamara. And my hot take is, if in a better system and if he had a better quarterback, Alvin Kamara would be the best running back in the league. Or in other words, Alvin Kamara has the most raw talent in the league. And my case is pretty much Alvin Kamara is a receiving back, right? He obviously likes in the backfield. He's a very good running back. He with handoffs and running the ball, but he has great hands. He can get up there and catch it. And you look back to his rookie year when he had Sean Payton, when he had Drew Brees. His rookie year was 2017 when he was drafted. He won the Offensive Rookie of the Year. He had a great season. I think he was first player of one of three players to ever have, like, a youngest player, I should say, to ever have 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards. And personally, I think he's a very talented running back, but when you have Dennis Allen as your head coach and you have Andy Dalton throwing it to you, your skill's not going to show. And I remember last season as a Saints fan, I get so aggravated because I don't remember what week it was, but it was like week 11 to 14 or so. And through like the span of 3 weeks, Alvin Kamara had 4 carries. And it made me so frustrated because we don't give the man the ball. And when we do, the one time we gave him the ball against the Raiders, we blew him out 24-0. So I think if he had a better coach that actually could use him well, and if he had a quarterback, say not necessarily Drew Brees, of course he was getting to age, but if he had a quarterback that liked to throw it to his running backs and check down, I think he'd be the best running back in the league.
Yeah, if you put him with a quarterback maybe like Ben Roethlisberger, who loved the check down pass with Najee Harris, he played great with Najee. I feel like he would be great, but also you had to look at maybe Saquon Barkley if he had a better team, except for the New York Giants. I feel like he would be really good also, but I could see Alvin Kamara is a really good running back. I would pick him in my fantasy a lot, but I feel like there could be a little argument with maybe Saquon or people like that.
I feel like if you traded Kamara to like the San Francisco 49ers, if they didn't have Christian McCaffrey, he would fit very good in that system just because of how it's built, structured around the running back. Sure, the quarterback position a little bit messy right now because you don't know if they're trying to trade Trey Lance because they're apparently shopping him around to other teams. And Brock Purdy currently undergoing UCL surgery. So you might have Sam Darnold throwing to you if you got traded there.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Dawson. Alvin Kamara is a very good running back. I know we're not speaking of Madden, but Madden, Alvin Kamara is almost unstoppable. Mm-hmm. So I do agree if he did have a better system, maybe in like an RPO type of system, he would be at least top 3 running backs in the league.
Yeah, and when making this take, I did kind of think of that. I was like, maybe not the best, but I remember when he was in his prime, that 2018 season, I remember him just watching him was so unbelievable. He can do it all, I think, and I think he is very like a similar running back to CMC, just a kind of like triple threat, you could say. He can do it from the backfield, he can do it from the receiving, heck, he can block as well. So, and I still maybe not think he'd be the best. Of course, you still got like Derrick Henry, who's putting on crazy highlights, and CMC, who arguably is better than Kamara, at least in each of their systems as of now when it comes to all the systems. But I'm going to stick with my take. I think Alvin Kamara would be the best running back in the league. I think he'd be considered the best running back in the league in a young age when he won that Rookie of the Year. You look at that class, 2017. Patrick Mahomes was drafted in 2017. CMC was drafted. Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, Cooper Kupp was in that class. And among all those guys, I'll have to look at the list to name some of the other offensive threats. He won Rookie of the Year. And I think if he had the potential, and if he had it, I'm sure we said several times, I think he'd be the best. And I think that goes to say just how how much Sean Payton leaving and how much Drew Brees leaving has just changed the entire aspect of New Orleans. But after the take, we'll just go around. Would you say you agree? Again, just be completely honest. No need to be nice to me. Would you agree that Alvin Kamara would be the best if he was in maybe not the better, or the best possible system for Alvin Kamara? Would he be the best running back? Or does Alvin Kamara have the best raw talent among running backs in the league?
I'm kind of half and half. I would agree with you. He has really good talent, best raw talent. I think I agree with you on that point. But I'm still questioning because like Saquon Barkley, put him on a different team.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that's stopping me.
I would say with Ryan, just because, like, sure, the system, if he was on a better system and they didn't have a bunch of, like, wide receivers like Josh Jacobs was in Vegas this year, he had an insane year, but the question mark is, like, will they stick with Josh Jacobs, continue throwing the ball to him? And it just depends on what the coaching staff and what the system direction going and coaching staff.
I mean, yeah, but with like as you see with Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley, you see them as just like majority of power running backs. But Alvin Kamara, we see him get through the gaps a lot. He is very shifty for a running back. So honestly, I would put him number one, and I would agree with you, Dawson.
All right, Ryan, well, you can take it away for your next tape. Tell us who it is, what it is, and why you think that.
Yeah, for my first hot take is Rodgers is a top 3 quarterback of all time. I'm personally a Packers fan. I mean, has the greatest touchdown to interception ratio of all time. He just hit his 100th interception of this year, and this is his 20th season. You know, that's kind of hard to beat. 4-time MVP, one Super Bowl. I feel like he could have won so many more, but NFC Championship losses kind of killed us. But yeah,
I think, Ryan, it's a good take, but there's so many better quarterbacks out there, like prime Russell Wilson. Sir, he's been on the downgrade, but like prime Michael Vick was insane in those years before his off the field incident.
I mean, yeah, the stats that you listed could put him top 3, but as Lucas was saying, I mean, Michael Vick, Russell Wilson, you can even go like, I don't know, Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, obviously, Patrick Mahomes. So I think there is a case for him to be top 3, but I think it's like more of a personal opinion, and I personally wouldn't put him top 3.
This one's tough because I think, yeah, in Aaron Rodgers' prime, I think I would take him arguably. I'd take him more on top of any other quarterback in the league in his prime, because that 2011, 2012 Aaron Rodgers, man, it was just, I don't know how he made some of those throws, putting them in the perfect spot, launched them 70 yards down, not 70, bit of an over-exaggeration, but 60, close to 70 yards downfield. But again, I think top 3 is a bit intense in that playoff history is just holding him back. I think he's almost a similar player. I don't think on the same level. If you look on the basketball side, I think kind of like a Chris Paul, where he has all these great stats, great history, but on the playoffs he struggles. And yeah, those 4 MVPs are, I think that's the most of all time to close at least. I mean, surely 4 is up there, but that one Super Bowl and those times he just struggled in the playoffs, I think that's holding him back from a top 3. But then again, don't want to say much because one of my future takes is going to have pretty much the exact same, result. So I would say no, but just outside. I put him at top 5 easy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Top 5 is for sure, but top 3, yeah, is hot take. But I mean, the 2012 season, the 2020, 2021 seasons also were insane. I think he was like 25-5 for touchdown interception ratios for stuff like that.
And I think you also have to mention Aaron Rodgers, like his weapons have been weak throughout his career. I mean, sure, he's had Devontae Adams. That obviously his Aaron Rodgers MVP season when he had Devontae Adams, a year ago or 2 years ago, it was great. But overall, I mean, Jordy Nelson might be the best target he's had, and Jordy Nelson wasn't this outstanding, athletic, super tall wide receiver. So I think that's another thing that Aaron Rodgers is able to get it done with some pretty weak weapons throughout his career.
I mean, he was one of the most accurate quarterbacks of all time. I mean, fitting in places that no one could ever do.
So you could almost say the same thing for Aaron Rodgers. If he was in a different system, I think one thing that could help him is his running, honestly. I feel like that's the only thing that holds him back. Obviously, as you said, he didn't have very good receivers, but still 4 MVPs as a quarterback with, as you said, not very good receivers is something to put up there, but I don't think he's top 3.
All right, but Lucas, you can go ahead and get us going with your first hot take.
All right, so my first hot take is the 2001 Lakers are better than the 73-9 Warriors. Just because who could defend Prime Shaq? Prime Shaq was averaging 30 points a game in the playoffs, 15 boards and 2 blocks. Even Richard Jefferson said you needed 3-4 bigs just to take on fouls. Sure, the Warriors could space him out, but still, he was above average from the mid-range, shooting up around 50% from the field.
And I don't want to interrupt you, Lucas, but are you saying that if they're faced each other in 2001, like in a game,
Yes.
2001's better? Okay, so that's what you're saying. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
And then Kobe Bryant took over in that series against the Philadelphia 76ers, won in 4 games or 5 games, but Kobe was averaging 30 points a game all playoffs long, and then Rick Fox could break out in a couple games, give you 13 to 10, and then Curry would struggle on Derek Fisher because Derek Fisher was a above average defender, averaging 2 steals a game and also dropping 13 points a game. But sure, Steph Curry could get hot at any moment and try to drop 40, but who could stop Prime Shaq? Because Prime Shaq could probably average around 30 to 40 on his own.
Yeah.
And then Draymond Green, sure, Draymond Green said he could defend Prime Shaq, but like he would get into foul trouble within the first quarter.
Yeah.
Due to if they went small, he would be put on Prime Shaq, who's 7'1", 325.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the different era comparisons are tough to compare, but I do agree with you. Shaq on Draymond, I feel like I don't really know how to compare this because, as I said, it is 2 different eras, but I know the 2000 era was a very physical era versus the Warriors. I mean, they're kind of like a slower team, obviously less fast paced besides on fast breaks. I mean, that was one of the best teams in the half court almost ever, but I do agree with you that the Lakers would beat them because obviously they beat my 76ers in the finals that year, so I do know how dominant they can be, but I feel like Curry and Clay obviously didn't have Kevin Durant yet, but those are the best 2 duos in NBA history, so I feel like they have a shot, but yeah, I agree with you, they wouldn't beat them.
Yeah, and I think really this is a hot take on the outside. I think when you first just think about it, yeah, the Warriors are the best team of all time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when you start thinking about it more and going in more depth, you're like, who is going to guard Shaq? Because if you think about it, that Warriors team, the best record, not of all time, I should take it back, but one of the best, obviously. They were unstoppable on 4 positions, but their center was just lacking a bit, and I think that's exactly what would happen. I think Shaq would just dominate that field. I think it would be a very close game. Don't get me wrong, and I mean the Splash Brothers, and they had KD then, right? Yeah. No, they didn't. Yeah, that's right. That was the year before. So maybe without KD, I think it would be a pretty big win. But I think with those Splash Brothers, you can never count them out. And I would have to agree with you, Lucas, but I don't think it's an easy win for the 2001 Lakers because they have several holes through their lineup. I mean, sure, that's Kobe and Shaq, but that supporting cast is arguably just as good, if not worse, than the Warriors supporting cast. So I'm going to have to say I agree, but very, very close.
Yeah, I'm going to agree that they will beat them, but I feel like it's going to be a 1 to 2 point spread because, I mean, it's so difficult. It was so difficult to guard Curry. Still now, BC would always run around, get all those picks, set a few screens for his teammates. It was so difficult to guard him because everyone would get so tired, and he would just stay in pace. But, I mean, yeah, I feel like it's so hard to guard Shaq. Shaq is probably the most dominant player of all time.
Another thing to mention, though, is Klay Thompson. We know how hot he can get, especially in that 2015 season. I think that was close to, his peak or where he, populated in the league. So I think, I mean, who did they have at Kobe? They had Kobe at the 2, but Derek Fisher at the 1. I feel like with Steph Curry running around the court all the time, I feel like a switch could happen. And Derek Fisher, sure, he's a good defender, but I don't know if he could guard Stephen Curry for the full 48 minutes.
And then you have Harrison Barnes at the 3 who let the Cavs come back in that 3-1, and then he got shipped off to Dallas and then Sacramento, where he is currently. So, and he would have to guard Rick Fox, but Harrison Barnes was one of his earlier years. He got a massive contract that a couple years before that season as well to keep him in Golden State, but his playoff success was very limited.
Yeah, and I think as Aiden was mentioning, I think Klay Thompson really gets overshadowed. I mean, this guy, arguably the second best shooter of all time. I mean, maybe you can argue Ray Allen's above him and Reggie Miller, but this guy is, Klay Thompson is 100% a top 5 shooter of all time. And I think there would be a switch. And arguably, I think Kobe might guard Curry that entire game just because, I mean, Kobe wasn't this giant shooting guard at one, and I think to that mentality, of course, that Black Mamba mentality is so famous for. I think he really locked down Curry, but I think that will give Klay the opportunity to get open. Saying, of course, a hypothetical scenario where these two teams faced off. But again, I'd have to agree with you, and with that, Aiden, we'll move on to you with your first hot take.
So I know this is a very hot take as he's expected to go number 1 in this upcoming draft, but I think Victor Wembanyama will be yet another bust. Just because, I mean, his what is he, 7'7"?
7'4", 5", 7'5".
Yeah, well, either way, he's 7 foot plus. He's like I wouldn't say a little build, but he definitely can't keep up with like Joel Embiid, Giannis, even Jokic. And I don't know if you guys saw that clip, but there was this clip overseas where there was this other player and he just posted him up and even dunked on Victor Wembanyama. I think the only thing that is stopping him coming into this draft is his build, almost like Chet Holmgren, and his defense. I feel like his defense is very sloppy for him being 7'4", and with the NBA, the centers are getting more aggressive like day by day. So I feel like he just couldn't hold up, and I think that he is overhyped.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree here right off the bat. I mean, I think there is definitely a case that he will be a bust, but I think in order to be a bust, you have to be healthy. And then kind of fail. I mean, sure, if you're injured right off the bat, I would consider you a bust. I mean, the bottom line is you're healthy or not. If you're not playing, you're a bust, right? But I think to say if he stays healthy, and I think if somewhat healthy, sure, I mean, it's almost guaranteed he's going to have ankle injuries here or there. But I'm saying healthy, no season-ending injuries. I think there's no way you can look at him as a bust. I mean, this guy is, at least in today's game, in my opinion, he's the perfect NBA build. I mean, you're 7'4", you can shoot the ball, and you're decently athletic. I mean, I saw an Instagram post of this guy deflexing, and I mean, it's quite impressive because 7'4", it's difficult to build muscle. I mean, that should go without saying, right? But this guy can do that. He can build muscle. I mean, he's not this big, bulky guy, but he's still skinny, of course, but I mean, of course, you have to look at his highlights. I mean, that one highlight of him throwing up the 3, missing it, and then flying in out of nowhere and dunking it back. I think that's just exactly how it's going to go in the NBA. And I think there is a case to make of, sure, France competition versus you're facing 7-footers every night in the NBA, guys that are arguably bigger than you, not taller, but bigger. I think it's going to be much more difficult. And I think maybe a hot take I would agree with, that he won't be the best coming out of this class. I think that might be a thing I would agree with. I think he's the best coming into it, but he might not be the best coming out. I mean, you never know. But again, I would say he's not going to be a bust, but I mean, he might not be all hyped up he's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to live up to what he's hyped up to be right now.
Exactly.
But I mean, I'm going to agree with you, Aiden. I feel like he will be a bust. I mean, as you said, Joel Embiid, how is he going to guard Joel Embiid with his size and his footwork is insane. Joel's footwork is one of the best. And I mean, you really can't. I don't know, because he can get just beat down from anyone Steve Adams to say.
Sadly, Aiden, I have to agree with you just because of the one clip of the FIBA 2020 World Cup. Victor Wembanyama had to guard Kenny Lofton Jr. Kenny Lofton Jr. is not the biggest guy. He's around Draymond Green, Trace Jackson Davis size, 6'7", 6'8", but he's a physical, like, bowling ball. He weighs like 235, and he was just pounding it into Victor Wembanyama all game. And sure, he didn't score very many points, but he showed the flaws of Victor Wembanyama in that game.
I mean, as you said, Kenny Lofton Jr., he's only 6'7", and with Victor Wembanyama being 7'4", or however tall he really is, I'm not sure. And with all this hype going in saying that he's a better draft prospect than LeBron James, I think if he doesn't live up or at least become an all-star, if he doesn't win Rookie of the Year and then be consistently an all-star for maybe 2-3 years somewhere in his career, I think he will be definitely solidified as a bust. Just because, like I said, the LeBron prospect comparison is very high to live up to, and I personally don't see him doing that in this current era of the NBA.
Yeah, and I think, again, I mean, this guy is most likely, or he is really the most looked at, the most excited prospect since LeBron. I mean, Zion, of course, in 2018, you got to look at him. He was almost in that similar position where no matter what your team needs are, say you have a franchise center, if you get the first overall pick, you're drafting Victor. It's one of those situations, and it happens every once in a while in the NBA, right? But you look at Victor, he has 7-2, just looking up his stats. He had 20 points a game in France, which, again, is very impressive, 10 rebounds a game. But, I mean, it's not crazy. And, sure, he's shooting 53.3% from three. And the three-point marker, I'm not sure if it's different in France and the NBA. I'm not sure if it's college rule. Is it college rule, Lucas? You know if you know?
I believe so.
Yeah, so either way, I mean, still 53%. If it's college or professional, 3-point, I think that's going to be impressive either way. But again, I'm going to still say I disagree, so I think that's final. You three say you agree, and then I disagree. But I'll move on to my second hot take. This one, similar to Ryan's in the sense of a top 3 quarterback, and mine is at Drew Brees, of course. Purdue, favorite college, got the Saints hoodie. I'm a huge Drew Brees fan. That's why I became a Saints fan, really to begin with. And my hot take is, although it might be a bit biased, is that Drew Brees is the second best quarterback of all time, just behind Tom Brady. He's deserving of at least 2 more MVPs, or not 2 more. He never had any, of course. Yeah. He was deserving at least 2 MVP seasons and an additional Super Bowl. Of course, first off, looking at that Super Bowl, I think he should have won. Of course, he won one. That would have been 2009. I think he won his first. 2018, we all know it. It was against the Rams, NFC Championship, the no call on the pass interference. In my opinion, if the ref blows that whistle, I think it is almost a lock that the Saints not only win that game, because I think there was 1 minute and 2 seconds left when that call happened. The game was tied. Saints most likely would have scored a touchdown, because if that call was if the ref blew the whistle, Saints would have been on the 5-yard line, and then the Rams would have less than a minute to get down the field and win the game. So I think the Saints would win the game. They'd go into the Super Bowl against the Patriots, and I think they beat them. That Patriots team, if you guys remember that Super Bowl, it was 13-3, the most boring Super Bowl arguably of all time when it comes to highlights. And I think that was the worst Patriots team to ever win a Super Bowl. They had the defense that year. If you guys remember that year, that was the fantasy Patriots defense that averaged 20 points a week, and it was just absurd. But their offense was lacking. I mean, Tom Brady, that was, I think, the year before he left, or maybe the year. No, it wasn't. It was the year before the year he left, I'm pretty sure. But he was still a bit I mean, sure, he was still Tom Brady, but he was a bit lacking compared to his prime, and the receivers they had around him, they were lacking. So I think Drew Brees would have won his second Super Bowl. And from the MVP side of things, I want to look at 5,000-yard seasons. Drew Brees, I think, has 5,000-yard seasons. And if you look back before the league expanded, plus added a game at the end of the year, before that, so it would have been just before 2 years ago, I think there was only 12 quarterbacks to ever have 5,000-yard seasons. None of them did it more than once. Drew Brees did it 5 times, and it is criminal that he doesn't have a single MVP if he had 5,000-yard seasons. So that's why I think if, say, he had 2 MVPs, a Super Bowl, and remember, he's the second highest in passing yards, second highest in passing touchdowns. I think he's around top 10 or so in or QBR all time. And sure, he has struggled with picks, but again, I think if he won those 2 MVPs, if the NFL didn't snub him out, and if they called that pass interference, he'd be arguably top 3 quarterback, in my opinion, the top 2.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. He should have deserved another Super Bowl and those 2 MVPs. I don't know if y'all say he's 2 of all time. I'll say maybe 5, top 5. I mean, yeah, he was a great quarterback for how small he was. I mean, it's like almost Bryce Young right now, but yeah, Drew Brees was looked past so many times when he was younger, and he lived up to it.
I would have to agree with you, disagree, Dawson. I think he's a top 15 quarterback.
Whoa.
Because Patrick Mahomes is in there. Sure, Brett Favre had some pick issues, but he's certainly up in that conversation. Joe Montana and Dan Marino too. Sure, they've been retired for a long time, but Dan Marino was really the first modern.
Yeah, and he was the first quarterback to ever throw 5,000 yards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was like the first modern throwing quarterback. And sure, 5,000-yard seasons are very good. He does deserve at least 2 MVPs due to those seasons as well.
I mean, yeah, I kind of agree with Lucas. I wouldn't say as far down as top 15, but I definitely would say at least top 10, maybe top 7. Just because, as you were saying, I mean, he won at least one Super Bowl, maybe got snubbed for another one. And for the MVP thing, I mean, he did get a Super Bowl MVP, which is obviously something very notable. But he definitely did get snubbed for that year because he didn't win it, but yet he won the Super Bowl MVP. So I think, I mean, he did lead the Saints to 9 playoff appearances as well. So I wouldn't go as high as top 3, or you said top 3, right?
Top 2.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't go top 2, but I would go top 10 at least.
Now, one more case I want to make before I finish off. First off, looking at Peyton Manning versus Drew Brees, because I hear a lot of people say the top 3 is Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, at least in the modern 2000 plus. Now, personally, you look at that 2008. Now, Peyton Manning won the MVP in 2008, and this is just why Drew Brees is snubbed out. Peyton Manning threw for over 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, won the MVP. Drew Brees threw for 5,000 yards, had the number 1 offense in the league, despite having their number 1 running back only had 625 yards. They still had the number 1 offense, and Drew Brees was snubbed out. He almost beat Peyton Manning in every single stat. I forget what year it was. I think it was Rodgers' first MVP. Same scenario. Drew Brees beat Rodgers almost every single stat except interceptions and QBR when it comes to just passing yards and passing touchdowns, and he still got stumped away from that MVP, and I think those are the 2 specifically he would win. Another thing I wanted to add here is Drew Brees' weapons. I mean, you look at, sure, he had Michael Thomas for, I'd say, maybe 2 years. He was the prime, maybe only 1 where you could say he was an elite receiver. Of course, that year he had the most receptions of all time. But on top of that, I mean, you had Jimmy Graham for a couple seasons. You had, what was his name? I couldn't remember, but it was a while ago. And the bottom line is Drew Brees' weapons have been lacking. Peyton Manning, I mean, he's been surrounded by elite weapons his entire career,
Marvin
right?
Harrison.
You got Marvin Harrison, you got
Reggie Wayne.
Dallas Clark, Reggie Wayne. Even on the Broncos, you have those 2 receivers. Again, totally forgetting their names, but they were elite too. So I think the bottom line is, although Thomas, although top 2 might be extreme, I'm going to say he's a top 2 quarterback just behind Tom Brady. The only thing holding him back is his playoff and MVP caliber thing. But with that, Ryan, we'll go ahead and move on to you for your second hot take.
For my second hot take is, at the end of Patrick Mahomes' career, he will be better than Tom Brady. He'll be the greatest of all time. I mean, yeah, it's a really big stretch. Maybe he won't have as many Super Bowls, but I mean, if you look at his stats, he's having one of the best careers right now. I mean, he's had the least amount of yards he's had in a season when he was starting is 4,000. I mean,
that's crazy.
He's one of the best right now. I mean, the best quarterback right now. He's had 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowls. But, I mean, it's so hard to tackle him also. With an injured ankle,
mobile.
he won the Super Bowl. And, I mean, it's I don't know. It's crazy to see him.
I don't know, Ryan. I would like to agree, but I just don't know if he could get a couple more rings in Kansas City, because that team this season got picked apart in free agency. Orlando Brown Jr. left, which was a key piece to their O-line. Juju Smith-Schuster, who had a couple big games late in the playoffs, left to go to New England. And then a couple other minor pieces, and they didn't really get much back in free agency due to their money situation by paying Patrick Mahomes, like a 15-year contract.
I mean, yeah, one of my takes was that Patrick Mahomes will never be better than Tom Brady. It might be biased, but I don't agree that last season was a very good season for Patrick Mahomes. I know he did beat my Eagles in the Super Bowl, so maybe you could say...
And MVP.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't think he deserved that either. Jalen Hurts, he led the Eagles to one of their greatest seasons over like 10 years.
Yeah.
I think the hype behind Patrick Mahomes gets him to where he is on the standings or rankings, if like whichever one you want to say. But I think there is no beating Tom Brady, at least for a couple more years, maybe not top 5, but next 5 drafts. Maybe we'll see a quarterback come in and maybe sneak up there. But I don't think Patrick Mahomes has nearly as close as talent as Tom Brady did, and therefore I don't see him ever passing him.
Now, I think this is very similar. Sorry about that. To your take with Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
I think in Mahomes' prime, whenever you say that was, whether it was last season, he had the most passing yards of his career, or it was 2018, his first starting season, where he opened up the gates and had 5,000 yards in 2018, and 50 touchdowns on top of that, which is insane for your first year as a starter. I still I'm gonna say I agree. Now, although I think he's gonna be a lock, a top 2 quarterback. I think he's gonna win 2 more rings in his career. I think he'll win arguably another MVP, maybe 2 in his career. I mean, this guy is still 27 years old, and sure, his play style of a quarterback is very, very different to Tom Brady in the fact that Patrick Mahomes has a shorter shelf life, is the bottom line. He is a physical guy with a strong arm that's going to scramble around, move around. Tom Brady was a very smart guy, pocket passer, especially towards the end of his career, of course, and that's really why he would be able to last for so long. But I think I'm going to agree with you just for the sake of agreeing with you, sure, but I would say top 2 for sure. Yeah. I think he's going to be one of the best 2 in the league, either Tom Brady or him. And I think to pass that, it's going to be tough because, of course, Tom Brady, generational talent. More Super Bowls of all time. But I think obviously we're going into a new era of quarterbacks with Drew Brees gone, Tom Brady gone, Big Ben, Aaron Rodgers heading to the end of his career, and Patrick Mahomes is the new guy, the face of the NFL that's going to be the next quarterback that'll win all these Super Bowls. And I think it's going to be very close, but I think he could be top 2, if not the best of all time.
And honestly, to go back on my take, I know that I said he's not like his popularity gets him to his rankings, but you do have to give him his credit. As Dawson said, he did have 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns just in his second season, being his first season starting. So I think that Patrick Mahomes does deserve the hype or deserve his credit, but I don't think he will be top 2. I honestly put him at least top 5 at the end of his career, maybe going toward that 4-3 spot.
Yeah, he had 41 touchdowns and 12 interceptions last year and had over 5,000 yards.
Yeah, definitely one of the best seasons he's had.
And when he went up against Tom Brady in that Super Bowl, I mean, no one could tackle him. It was so difficult to tackle him, but I mean, no one could make a catch also.
Yeah, and I think sure, it's so hard to predict like how it's going to go. Yeah. Like it's almost impossible to predict how many Super Bowls you think he's going to win. Sure, you could somehow predict like how long you think he's going to be good or how many more MVPs, but Super Bowl, of course, it's not just him. Yeah. And I think you look at Patrick Mahomes' surroundings, right? He's had a top, at least in my opinion, a top 10 coach right now of all time in Andy Reid. Since the beginning of his career, he's had Alex Smith that first season, who was a very good quarterback when Patrick Mahomes first came in the league, to kind of mentor him. And I think if Alex Smith was on that team, I don't even know if Patrick Mahomes would be the Patrick Mahomes we've seen now. I think he did a huge part. Alex Smith, I think he did a very underrated part in helping and growing Patrick Mahomes to be a quarterback. And of course, Travis Kelce has been there for his entire career, is arguably one of the best tight ends of all time right now. Tyreek Hill for his first 4 or 5 seasons, of course, going to Miami last year. So I think although his options have been elite, I still think you can't take credit away from Patrick Mahomes for having elite options. I see a lot of people doing that. I see a lot of people saying if you didn't have Andy Reid and if you didn't have Travis Kelce, he'd be a bust. It's just not true. I mean, the man, his arm is insane. He is arguably the best well-rounded quarterback, in my opinion, in his prime of all time. I think he could do it all last season, 2018. I think he could do it all. So again, I'm going to have to agree with you, Ryan. I think he will be. After talking this over, I think he will be the best quarterback of all time when he retires.
Yeah, I would like to add another thing. I mean, they were projected to be, last in their division last year, and he went on to win the Super Bowl. And every single time he started in the season, he's went to at least the AFC Championship.
For my next take, Bronny James is not a superstar. If he wasn't related to LeBron James, he would be a late second round pick, 55 to 60 range. Just because he's just a good role player on a championship team. If you put him on a championship team, he would probably be like a Jeremy Lin on one of those 2-way contracts, because he averaged less than Josiah Gustin did here. He only averaged 14 points a game, 5.5 assists a game, and three assists a game. Scouts are saying how good of a passer he is, but he only averaged 3 assists a game. So, most big schools would not be coming after him if he wasn't related to LeBron James. But if he wanted to stay in the state of California and USC, Oregon, or UCLA didn't offer him something, he would most likely end up at like San Jose State or San Diego State, most likely not starting, but probably coming off the bench as a role player.
I mean, I feel like you could compare him to honestly, you could compare him to like a rookie year, at least year 2, year 3, Andrew Wiggins. And we see what he's doing on the Warriors. So I feel like as Bronny develops more, obviously, yeah, I agree. He wouldn't be as hyped up if he wasn't LeBron's son, but I feel like he does deserve some recognition. You said something about Josiah Gustin and his averages being near that, but you have to mention the California bracket. I mean, California is loaded with talent, especially with basketball in the high school means. I mean, as we saw, Mikey Williams, obviously, he's not going to be able to do any much anymore, but that's another comparison you could make. As we saw him in Bronny on the Blue Chips, and honestly, Mikey was better than Bronny. So I feel like you are right. If he wasn't LeBron's son, he wouldn't have near as much population, but I don't feel like he's as bad as a player as some people make it out to be.
I think the fact that he is LeBron's son is helping him, but also hurting him. I mean, you look on the helping side of things, he's number one already in NIL deals. Of course, he has the Nike, right? Nike contract, signed a contract with Nike. I think he's on the NIL side of things. He's making over $1 million a year, which is just insane for a high schooler. And I think the bottom line is the people that are scouting him are professionals. And the NBA teams and the college scouts and the 24/7 Sports, ESPN, they're professionals, and they don't care he's LeBron's son. They're going to give him the right ranking, and he's a 4-star. This guy's not. I think he's a 4-star.
He's 3.5 or 4.
Yeah, so he's not this 5-star, top 5 in the nation. He's already down the list, and in my opinion, I think he should be where he is. I think he deserves to be where he is, and I think it's hurting him that he's LeBron's son because he's getting a lot of hate. There's a lot of people saying he's going to be a bust. He's not that good, which arguably he might not make it to the NBA. I mean, we see 3.5, 4-star recruits not make it all the time. I mean, it depends what he does in college. But I think the bottom line, another thing to mention is he has LeBron's genes, and LeBron is an athletic freak. And I think if you get a guy that's even close to LeBron's athleticism, it's worth drafting him. And I think there will be a bit of bias when it comes to NBA teams drafting him if he gets to that stage, and the fact that, say, LeBron James somehow managed to stay in the league that long. I think there's a bit biased that if we draft Bronny, we might get LeBron, and then we could have this media day frenzy where you got the father-son playing on the first time for the first time in NBA history. So I think I would disagree, Lucas, that I think he won't be a bust, because I think where he's at right now is where he should be, and where he is in the NBA is where he should be, because the scouts don't care that he's LeBron's son. The media does, but the scouts don't. So he's going to go where he deserves to go.
Yeah, I'm gonna say he's maybe not as high as people say. I feel like maybe mid first round, maybe later first round. I mean, LeBron, it's going to be really difficult to live up to any of LeBron.
Yeah,
LeBron's just such a great player, one of the greatest of all time.
Arguably the greatest.
It could be arguably the greatest.
That's another episode. That's another talk for another time.
But I think why he should be like a mid second round pick, because he has upside, but he hasn't been able to show it, because Sierra and Canyon has a great team around him, but he's not putting his effort to use.
I feel like another thing that you could say, Bol Bol to Manute Bol. I mean, Manute Bol wasn't the best player that we ever seen, but Bol Bol got more hype than he deserved because of his father. But for another take that I would say that Larry Bird is a better playoff performer than Michael Jordan. Very hot take, but Larry Bird against MJ in the playoffs has a 17-11 series over him. Obviously, he beat them in the Eastern Conference Finals a couple times, shut down his playoff hopes. I think he even beat them in the first round a couple times. So you'd argue if Larry Bird, or if Michael Jordan didn't face Larry Bird, he would have a better career. But that goes to show that Larry Bird could be a better playoff performer than him.
Yeah, and I think we're going to have to keep this one short first off the bat. We're running out of time, but I think that's a decent hot take. And sure, Larry Bird, I mean, he has 3 rings compared to Michael Jordan. Obviously has more, but I think compared to them facing off, I would say Larry Bird trumps, right? You said it, Aiden. He has the history of beating Michael Jordan in the playoffs. But of course, Larry Bird was kind of at the end of his career when Michael Jordan was coming up. I mean, sure, they were overlapping for a decent while, but Larry Bird wasn't this crazy good star that he was before Michael Jordan entered the league. So I would have to disagree, just because, I mean, the bottom line is if it's a better playoff performer, Michael Jordan has the best. He has the most rings, not the most rings in history, of course, but obviously one of the most rings in history. And I think when again, I agree with you. When facing off to each other, Larry Bird outdoes them, but alone, the better playoff performer, I have to give it to Michael.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of difficult to say Michael Jordan is not one of the best of all, like one of the best player performers of all time. I mean, 6-0 in the finals. You said first round exits a few times, but also, I mean, as Dawson said, it was coming into the start of his career, and Larry Bird coming into the end.
I would also have to disagree with you, Aiden, just because those Celtics teams were very well rounded back in the 80s, and they were making the finals almost every year. It was a guarantee because you had Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and a laundry list of very good players at the time.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing, just quickly punching in here. Larry Bird wasn't, I mean, he was the star of that Celtics team, but he was definitely not the only player that was getting stuff done in the playoffs. I mean, that Celtics team overall was very good, as Lucas was saying. So, I think, but again, I mean, you look at Michael's early years, he didn't have much help before he got Scotty. And I think overall, well-rounded Celtics were better than the Bulls in the playoffs, but Michael Jordan was better than Larry Bird. So that goes back to your take. I'd have to disagree, but it's very close.
So now that I hear all your guys' opinions, that is the good part about hot takes, is hearing everybody else's opinion on your opinion. So I honestly do agree that Michael Jordan may be better playoff performer, but I agree that Larry Bird was Michael Jordan's, let's say, like kryptonite.
Antidote, something like that. Mm-hmm. All right, but with that is all the time we have. We hope you all enjoyed. Once again, alongside Ryan Davis, Lucas Cart, and Aiden Wilson, I'm Dawson Perrell. You can expect a new episode on the first half of the week. Again, just check our socials. We'll be posting whenever a new episode airs. But again, expect Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for each episode. But with that, hope you all enjoy. You have a nice day. You're listening to the Arabian Sports Talk here on 91.7 WEEM.